Welcome back to the Dark Reading News Desk at RSA 2025. Terry Sweeney here, contributing editor with Dark Reading, and I'm glad to welcome to the news desk Stephan, Senior Director of Security Analytics with OpenText Cybersecurity. Stephan, thanks you for joining us on Dark Reading News Desk.
No problem at all, Terry. Glad to be here.
Just get us started here. Give us a quick overview of OpenText Cybersecurity and how your team is working to address what is always a dynamic threat landscape.
Sure, for sure. It's actually quite a broad and deep portfolio, but I can simplify by sort of dividing it up into sort of 4 areas. We can start with securing the code. So we have a number of coding products that essentially scan your source code, scan the source code, open source repositories that you might be dependent on, things like that. Then we can move on to data governance and data privacy and sort of the points of the border that touches that data. So primarily email-based security and endpoint-based security. So we have a number of solutions in that area. The third bucket would be around being able to secure your identity. So identity and access management and being able to sort of govern those identities as they move around your organization.
I mean, identity is the keys to the kingdom, right?
That's absolutely correct, right? And so it's important not just to sort of monitor that, but also be able to detect when those identities are being abused in some sort of alarming fashion. And then the fourth category, of course, my passion is threat detection and response. And those are more on the security operations side, so being able to detect threats as they happen, being able to recover from threats, by having a solid backup and recovery strategy, and being able to investigate those threats forensically and launch investigation if the need arises.
How good has predictive analytics become with its ability to see into the future and warn us of something that may be just not on the horizon, but maybe over the horizon?
I think it's been actually quite a stunning decade for us. This is actually where my team shines. So you asked about the shifting landscape and how to respond to it. That's what we've been focused on for the last 10 years. Being able to not just do a better job analyzing all the new and complex increasing amounts of data that we now have flowing through our organization, but also being able to update our techniques, especially around detection, to be able to find all those subtle clues and make those predictions so that we can find the bad guy before it's too late.
So all that being said, the bad guys are working just as hard and using similar tools to evade detection and to try to stay a step ahead. It's this continual cat and mouse game, right? Talk about some of the emerging tactics that you're seeing in today's threat landscape and maybe how they're impacting organizations differently than they may have been in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to focus on 2 techniques that I'm seeing increasingly prevalent in the area. The first is, of course, AI-powered deepfakes and phishing attacks.
Sure.
It's so interesting watching what you can do now with an off-the-shelf LLM that is much more economically feasible to be able to craft a really sort of targeted phishing or spear phishing email that doesn't have the traditional tells of before. The second area I would say is an increase in the use of living off the land, being able to use things like PowerShell, WMI, whatever's available on the system, really sort of blurs the line between sort of legitimate activity and malicious activity. Those 2 areas are really sort of encouraging organizations to look more at advanced techniques around detection that previous techniques, while good, while still part of the baseline, while still standard, really don't apply anymore.
Explain living off the land for those who may be new to that term.
Living off the land is when an attacker doesn't need to sort of download a new tool in order to be able to sort of complete his mission. So they're taking over a machine and they're using what's already available and therefore pre-approved to run at a machine. So they're using PowerShell, which is built into Windows operating systems by default. They're using PSExec, which is available if you are a sysadmin. So you're no longer able to sort of have simple blacklists of processes to detect for because they're already there. You're living off the land.
Excellent. That is really well explained. Those, of course, are the external threats. Internal threats are also continuing to evolve. What's making them difficult to detect, and what can organizations do to protect themselves against the insider threats?
Yeah, insider threats is actually well known to be one of the most difficult types of attacks to detect. And that's true for two reasons. The first reason is you've got a bad guy on the inside. And so what that means is you have an authorized user who's running authorized applications, who's accessing authorized data, but they're still doing bad things, right? So how do you find that guy? Standard access control just does not work because they're authorized to do everything that they're doing. The second reason why they're so hard to detect is because they're highly motivated, right? When you have a highly motivated adversary, they are limited only by their creativity and imagination. Essentially, every insider attack is slightly different in the specifics of how that attack was made. They are highly creative, and every attack becomes essentially a first of a kind. So what happens if you have an infinite number of 0 days attacks? That's really hard to detect. So again, so standard signature-based, rules-based, or list-based techniques do not apply. You need to really embrace, as an organization, the more modern and robust techniques to be able to specifically target insider threats.
What is the profile of the typical insider? Is it the disgruntled employee? Is it somebody who's just picking and choosing for say, profit on the side? What are you seeing there?
Right. So I'm fond of saying that there are only 3 types of bad guys. There's the bad guy on the outside, there's the bad guy on the inside, and there's the stupid guy on the inside. So the bad guy on the outside, essentially they somehow manage to sort of break in and take over an account. And so they essentially become the bad guy on the inside. The bad guy on the inside, whether they're physically an employee of the company, for example, and they're sort of within your environment, or there's been an account takeover, they essentially are sort of using the tools that are available to that account to be able to move laterally within the system and then do their damage. The stupid guy on the inside is the person that is still sort of motivated. They're trying to do their job. They're trying to be more effective. They're trying to be more efficient for the company, but they're just unknowingly presenting risk to the company by running unsanctioned cloud services and performing other operations that might otherwise leave the open.
So it's not malice, it's ignorance.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Of course, AI is the topic that dominates so many of our conversations.
Never heard of it. What's AI?
Talk a bit about how AI's role has evolved since, I don't know, since we all met at RSA a year ago, and how it's supporting security teams in fighting today's threats. Automation, of course, is the thing that seems to attract so much attention. Break it down a little bit more for us.
For sure. It's so funny. So I've been in AI and analytics for, I think, over 20 years now.
Wow.
And I've been in cyber for about 15 years, and I've been going to RSA for about 10 years now. And I feel like the AI hype just keeps coming back, right? So I do sort of sympathize with the people that walk the show floor and see AI everywhere. But I think we all remember deep learning. We all remember sort of Bayesian systems. We all remember neural networks. And now we have LLMs and agentic AI. And it just sort of keeps becoming another buzzword. In some ways, I would actually argue that the goal of AI has not changed, right? The goal of AI or any other sort of technology is always been for cyber to support your team. So your team of humans in this case, right? Make them more effective, make them more efficient. You will never have enough highly skilled humans on your SOC team. And the goal of the math of AI, I mean, I like saying it's magical, but it's not magic, right? It's just another technology, just like cloud or databases. We just need to sort of apply it in the right way, based on use case, based on success metrics that you've defined, in order to sort of really solve the job for you in a meaningful way.
All right. Stephan, real briefly, talk to us about considerations that organizations should consider to ensure that AI works for them and not against them.
Start with the use case. Do your best to ignore the buzz.
Okay.
I know there's a lot of buzz out there. There will always be buzz. It's terrible. I apologize on behalf of the entire AI research community for that. But do focus on the use case. Define your success metrics. Do a POC. Just stick to the basics.
Stephan, really insightful stuff. You've given us a lot to think about. Thank you so much for doing the Dark Reading News Desk.
It was a pleasure. Anytime. We've
been talking with Stephan Ju of OpenText Cybersecurity. This has been Terry Sweeney for the Dark Reading News Desk. Thanks for joining us for this segment. We'll see you next time.